high level of polish, but I would like to talk about the game Disco Elysium. This is a very unique game that I can honestly say has been quite unlike any other gameplay experience that I have encountered before. And I would like to go over just a basic overview of what the game is, then what I like about it, and some drawbacks, and then wrap up with overall conclusions. Alright, before I continue, I would just like to establish what I'm going to consider a spoiler in this video. I think I'm going to make 2 videos about this game ideally. One is this review, and another will be an artistic analysis, and I'm going to get more into spoiler territory in that analysis. But this one I'm going to try to keep it spoiler free. I'm going to consider a spoiler for the purposes of this video are specific plot details that come up after the preliminary interrogation of the Hardy Boys. That'll mean something to you if you're playing the game. Otherwise, you don't really need to worry about it. But, yeah, if you're trying to go into the game with absolute minimum knowledge, probably don't watch this video. But if you're okay with, like, a very moderate amount of plot details being revealed, you can keep watching. So, Disco Elysium takes place in a fictionalized 50s. Everything in the world of Elysium is reflective of our own world, but not quite the same as far as labeling and semantics. For example, there are many nations in this world that vaguely correspond to geographic areas in our own world. And there are political ideologies that represent our own. But many of them have slightly different names, slightly different histories. So, let's begin with the actual plot of the game. Disco Elysium is kind of a buddy cop game, although that is quite a reductive description of what the experience really is. But it is true that you are a cop, and the entire time, essentially, you have a buddy. And this game employs an interesting expository device where the protagonist has completely lost his memory in a night of binge drinking. And so both you and the protagonist learn about the world at large and his own life story in real time, which I think is an interesting way to get a little more expository with things than would generally make sense. The plot in this game follows the same general story beats every time, but the way it plays out can be substantially different depending fans of the crime and detective genre, if you want to be satisfied with the outcome of this particular narrative. The way that this game is handled is very much like a tabletop RPG, in such that the different challenges you must pass are handled by checks done by dice rolls. And you can either succeed or fail at these checks, and you can apply different modifiers to yourself to make yourself more likely or less likely to fail or succeed at the checks. The most primary part of Disco Elysium, however, is the written story. The amount, the sheer density of storytelling in this game is unbelievable. I would love to know just how long the voice acting audios back to back. I would love to know just how long that is, because I bet it is a crazy length of time, because there is a huge amount of text, and this text changes substantially depending on your reactions to the different situations. It's an impressive level of depth, and it is a very literary experience. You will be doing a lot of reading or listening, if that is what you prefer, because it is a fully voice acted game. But this game is all about the story. It is all about the written story, more so than anything else. And it is especially about the inner journey that the protagonist takes in literally finding himself and his identity again, and either trying to fix himself up or allowing himself to fall victim to the same self-destructive spirals that he always has. And also, there is your companion, Lieutenant Kim Kitsuragi, who is definitely your character foil, while your protagonist is a bumbling drunkard. Lieutenant Kitsuragi is straight-laced and serious and competent, and also very kind and understanding, and is not particularly mean or hostile to your player character, even though he has every right to be sometimes. The way that you treat your partner impacts the outcome of the game substantially as well. And I think that Lieutenant Kitsuragi's role in the game is really a highlight. I just wish that they had a few more dialogue options together, because the little glimpses that I did get into this kind of minimally spoken character were very delightful. I enjoyed the little peeks into his sense of humor and just the general character building around his and the protagonist's relationship. I think it's, well, at least I played it so they ended up best friends in the end. Although you can certainly play it so that he dislikes you quite a bit, which I don't think I could handle. I don't know if I could make him hate me. I like him too much as a character. Now that I've discussed kind of the general shape of the game, I would like to start discussing what I like about it, which is quite a lot. This game is just loaded to the brim with art. I think the writing is artful, the music is artful, the design and graphics are artful. It is a very well considered and aesthetically pleasing, and the symbology is consistent and engaging. And there are just so many little details in the design aspects to pick out that it's a very sensory, engaging sort of experience. The music in particular, I think, is a real standout. As soon as you step out onto the streets of Martinez, the setting of your investigation, this haunting horn that sounds like it's being played from across the sea starts filling the air, and it is wonderful overworld music. It is haunting and lonely and so effective for the setting. And that's not to speak of the piano motif. I think it's called Ghost Shacks in the official soundtrack, because it plays when you get access to a little house along the coast. But more than that, that particular piano motif plays in moments of particular sadness and times when you are alone, like in the shack where you are not typically alone in this game. And this is some very mild spoiler territory. I won't tell you the context in which the song plays, but there's an extended cutscene with a very beautiful vocal track, very, very haunting and ambient vocals. And a little more than halfway through the song, you start to realize that the whole track is built off of that piano motif that you've been hearing throughout the whole game. And it is such a satisfying moment. I honestly shed a tear, because it was just such an emotional moment in the story and in the music that it just worked. It just worked for me. Those aren't the only two standout music moments, but there's a lot of them in the game, and those are just the ones that jump out to me the strongest. The writing is definitely very, for me, I would say it's very intrusive, because once you play this game for a while, the way that it's written starts to get in your head, because it's sort of every single thought the narrator has, every single different kind of sensory input he could possibly have, has its own different voice, has its own different way of speaking to you. And at least for me, ever since I started playing this game, my brain has started narrating me. But it has a very distinctive and interesting writing style, and you are so compelled to pursue all the available dialogue trees, and yet some of them are truly punishing. I can tell that this is a well-written game, because it hurts you in real life to make bad decisions. Truly. The game has a very intelligent way of making you appreciate the characters and making you feel stakes are very real and making you feel like when you mess up, it's very real. I admittedly save scummed a lot in this game, and it lets you do that. It lets you quick save during those convenient times. Although I'm sure the game would probably be more interesting if I didn't do that and just let myself fail sometimes. But man, it just, sometimes messing up just feels terrible, horrible in that game. But again, that's just kind of a testament to how well written it is. I really appreciate the amount and diversity of both the main plot and the side stories. In fact, there's one side story in particular that you think is very tangential and it ends up being very, very important. So I think it's good to one thing that I would spoil for is the point of no return. There is a pretty major point where you cannot do a lot of major quests. I would recommend you checking out when exactly that is. I will not be telling it now because I don't want to take away your freedom of choice, but there is a point of no return, and you may lose a large amount of progress if you proceed without knowing that. Just warning you. But there is a very large amount of side quests, and they're very interesting. There is a very wide variety of side characters, all of which are voiced. Voice acting in this game is excellent. It is really, really great. And not all of them have the same level of dire stakes as your murder mystery. There are some kind of fun little excursions that you can take while solving this grim case. And my final major good point, I think there are a lot of others, but these are just like the fundamentals of what makes this game, in my eyes, a good game, is the world building. The world is very dense, and as I said, that mechanic that it employs of your protagonist having lost his memory is a clever way to have the entire world explained to you as if you're kind of taking a class in the world of the video game. It is very dense and there is a lot of history, and sometimes it could honestly get a little bit too dense for me. I think if there was any time that I skipped dialogue, it was probably during the history explainer sections, because it was just a little bit too tangential to what was going on. But if you're really big into that kind of thing, if you're really big into constructed and fictional histories, you're going to be really, really interested in the world building around Disco Elysium. Okay, now I'd like to move on to some things I did not care for about the game. I would say that these mostly have to do with technical aspects. You can sort of tell that the game was built by a smaller team and not a gigantic AAA studio, and that manifests in some janky controlling every now and again. There's sort of a point and click movement system, and it can get to be pretty annoying at times, and the navigation is not always effortless, and I think there can be an issue with spaces that appear to be navigable that aren't. issues with other people where entire save files have gotten lost, and in my case, sometimes the game gives me a really hard time when I'm either trying to quick save or normal save. It'll just say, you got an error every single time, and that can get a little nerve-wracking when you've made a whole lot of progress and you don't want to lose all of it. Speaking of losing progress, that autosave does not kick in very often, and if you fail a check that you didn't want to, you really need to be on top of your quick saves, which again are not always reliable, if you don't want to lose a whole bunch of progress, and that can be a little bit frustrating. I definitely feel like the majority of having a bad time in this game, like not enjoying myself playing the game, because there's definitely certain times that you're having a bad time, but you're still enjoying playing the game because you're having a bad time because it's just so well written. But there's other times that you're having a bad time because it's just really hard to physically proceed where you want to go. And that second kind is much less good. I think that's pretty much about it. I don't think there are really any glaring flaws as far as the writing is concerned. It's very well considered and thorough. Although, as I said before, sometimes it gets a little too dense to be tolerable, at least for my preferences. Yeah, I think for the most part, the flaws are pretty well fixable, minor, and much more on the technical side than on the conceptual or writing side. So, all in all, I really, really liked this game. I thought it was very satisfying and fulfilling. I like how it felt like reading a book instead of playing a game, with just the sheer density of text and the level of written information it provides to you. I, however, don't think the game is for everyone. If you don't care for sitting through that level of text, if you're not partial to observing inner journeys as a narrative, you might not be pleased with Disco Elysium. You might find it boring. Yeah, I would definitely play more for the psychological element, the discovery element, the learning of the world element, than specifically the murder mystery element, because that part in particular is a little controversial by people that have played it. I'm not going to get more specific than that, but if you like point-and-click adventures, if you like role-playing games, if you like visual novels, you like things that are very text-heavy, very information-heavy, very character development and building-heavy, then I think you're going to find Disco Elysium to be a really interesting and satisfying gaming experience. Probably not one that you've necessarily seen anything like before. Alright, I really hope that you have enjoyed this ASMR video game review. Have you played Disco Elysium? Let me know in the comments if you have and if you had enjoyed it, or if you're interested in playing it, or if you're completely uninterested in playing it. That's fine too. I think sometime in the future I will be back with a ASMR analysis video on the symbology and